Happy New Year. I just wanted to get on here for a few minutes and reach out and talk with some of you all. I feel like I haven't seen you. You know, anytime we change our service schedule just a little bit, I get all out of sorts. Maybe you do too, but I feel like I haven't seen some of you. It is New Year's Day coming up this Sunday, New Year's Eve, Saturday night. And I was thinking of this today earlier. How many New Year's days have you experienced in your lifetime? Now, maybe that'll upset you to think about the number, but in reality, it doesn't seem that many, you know. If you're like me, you can remember back to trying to stay up late when you were a kid, and you were watching maybe the Guy Lombardi, if you're old enough, or the Dick Clark Countdown Special, or whatever it was in your household. But it hasn't been all that many different occasions that we've celebrated a new year. And here it is upon us. This is a great time for new determinations. We always talk about the resolutions that people make. This is a time when we make resolutions to improve our physical health or maybe our mental acumen. We decide we're going to read some new books or more books, or like me, the books that I had from last year that I never finished. And we'll talk about that not finishing here in just a second. But hopefully you have a mindset and a determination to improve your spiritual health as well. Too often the tendency is that we make these determinations, but we don't follow through on that. That's why I have books here on my desk that have yet to been read, and I've done perhaps portions of it, and I just saw one here earlier this afternoon that I haven't even started. So the ban is on. I can't buy or take in any new books until I get some of those read. But the decisions that we make are always easier to make than to keep. Why is that? Well, it takes determination. We've got to have some personal drive. We've got to be disciplined with our time, with our efforts, with our thoughts, to follow through. The decision making is easy. I can decide at the snap of my fingers. You can decide, and perhaps many of us do when we hear a challenge from Scripture and we make a decision at that moment. Do we follow through with it? I think perhaps one of the saddest things I've read in Scripture speaks to that very issue. Because for some people, that decision without determination to follow through, and for some, it's the thought about deciding, or the thought about changing, or the thought about accepting something, and then not eventually doing it. And that sad occasion that I read about in Scripture is in Acts 26. And again, for me, it is one of the saddest passages of Scripture that I can think of. You'll find that Paul is on trial there. Acts chapter 26, we're at the end of the book of Acts, or towards the end of it. And Paul is on trial. He's been accused of certain things. Most primarily is his desire and his zeal to share the gospel. And that is eventually what he was in trouble for. But as we read through Acts 26, King Agrippa gives Paul the permission to speak in his defense. And he opens up and he gives a very succinct background and heritage. He talks about his strong heritage as the chief of the Jews, his background, his tribal background, and all of that, setting the stage for what comes next, his zeal and his desire to persecute Christians. He was busy about persecuting anyone who claimed to follow Christ. Then, of course, in part of his defense, he tells the dramatic story from earlier that we read in the book of Acts about his conversion. There on the road to Damascus, he encounters Jesus himself. He is confronted with the truth of who Jesus is and what he is doing. And his life from that moment on is completely transformed. He is then set out to be a missionary, an ambassador, a witness for Jesus Christ. In fact, as he concludes that section in Acts chapter 26, he says this in verse 22, "Having therefore obtained help of God, I continue unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other things than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come, that Christ should suffer, that he should be the first that should rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles." Paul is on defense for his own life, and he shares the gospel. Well, that's not a surprise. Everywhere that Paul went, he shared the gospel. The Roman governor Festus, who is sitting there observing all of this, jumps in and he says to Paul, "You've gone mad from all your learning." I wonder how many who have been students at one time in your life, if you didn't feel that was true of yourself. I've been there. I'm losing my mind in this education. And Paul disagrees. He said, no, that's not it at all. And then this conclusion, here's the sorrow of this event. For the king, Paul confronts him, King Agrippa, the king knoweth these things, before whom I also speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him. For this thing was not done in a corner. Paul says he's heard it. He knows it. He knows about Jesus, and he knew it probably before he's heard of me. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? And the sorrow of his reply. Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Almost, he says, I believed. I think about that in our lives, and perhaps you could recognize it in your own life, the almost moments. Almost I did that thing. I wonder if there isn't someone who's watching this or someone who you know that in their spiritual life, they've yet to trust Christ and they've heard it before and they understand their need, but they still are saying almost. They're waiting for a better occasion or more convincing evidence or a stronger desire. Almost I trusted in Jesus rather than trying to do things on my own. Even Christians, we struggle with this. Almost I witnessed for Christ. Almost I followed through and read and studied Scripture. Or I did that. Almost I reached out and mended a broken relationship. Almost I served in that capacity. I hope that this new year, this new occasion, we don't just treat it as a cliche with resolutions that we don't keep. Gym memberships unused, runs that are never taken, and all of those things that go undone. I hope that this will be a time where we follow through with the things that the Lord lays on our hearts. Strengthening, yes, our mind and our body, but certainly strengthening our spiritual relationship, the health of our spiritual walk. I said at the beginning, I haven't seen you all in a while, and I want to, before we end, give you an invitation to join us this Sunday. I know that a lot of folks have been traveling. We've had folks in Ohio and Minnesota and some in Utah for business and folks that have gone here and there, South Carolina, and I'm thinking of all these individuals that have gone somewhere. But we did have a great service Christmas Eve. We had a great crowd there, family, friends that joined, and a really good attendance Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, I almost felt like it was a completely different group of people, but another full house on Sunday morning to celebrate Christmas as we studied that Song of Simeon. Well, we've wrapped up that study. In fact, we've wrapped up kind of Christmas here as maybe you have in your home. And our schedule is a little different as we move forward. But I want you to be with us this Sunday. And then the next Sunday, special things that are going on. And the schedule a little different. This Sunday, just one service at 10:30. New Year's Day, one service at 10:30. The next week, King's Brass will be with us in the 10:30 service. There'll be no Sunday school, but that week on the 8th, we'll begin our Sunday PM services back again. And we want you to be there for that. And then I want you to stay tuned. You'll see it in the bulletin Sunday. Added opportunities to serve, to learn, to grow. We have some great things that we're adding to the calendar that we want you to be a part of. Some that will enrich us, some that will be outreach to others. All of them very important, and we'd love for you to participate in them. This is what it's all about, serving people in the name of Christ and learning and growing in our spiritual walk, and I hope that you'll take part in that. This Sunday, 10:30 a.m., just one service all Sunday, and our friend Pastor Jason Lang from Springfield in Missouri is in town for the holidays for some family things, and he's going to be preaching. I've seen the notes already and the slides that will be presented, and it is a great sermon for the first day of a new year on moving forward and making this next year, 2023, one of the best spiritually growing years you've ever experienced. So I hope you'll be there for that. And then in the next couple of weeks, King's Brass, always an exciting time. We always love having them there. Sunday nights begin again. Some exciting new things added to our regular schedule the following week, week after that, and the year just gets rolling. In fact, we're going to have a new theme that we roll out here in the next few weeks about who we are and how we relate. And so I'll leave some of that shrouded just for now, but we're going to roll that out, a new theme for our walk and our growth in the coming year, and I want you to be a part of all of it. So I hope that starts with perfect attendance this Sunday morning. One service, 10:30. I look forward to seeing you there.